Hey everyone, welcome back to the Grace and Truth Podcast. My name is Taylor Bacon. I'm the Associate Pastor at Grace Resurrection Methodist Church.
And I'm James Williams, Senior Pastor.
And this week's episode, we are talking about the fact that God is not trying to make you comfortable. How Western Christianity has quietly sold the gospel as a path to a better, more stable life, and that is not what Jesus offered. So let's dive into this week's conversation. So I gave you 4 options of what we could talk about.
And you know me too well. You knew
yeah, well, and for those of you who don't know, I think I've said this before, but I prepare the show notes and everything. I've given them to James in the past, but James is better on his feet with this kind of stuff. Not that he wasn't good when we, had a script or anything. He just prefers to kind of go off the cuff. It makes this sound what we want it to be and just like a conversation between the two of us.
These things.
Yeah, and so I typically will come in and have, 3 to 4 options prepped, and James gets to pick. And I told him, I said,
I am the senior pastor.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I was just telling you.
You get to pick.
I got asked if I need the senior discount this week. That was really painful.
So what you heard is you have to be above a certain age to pastor this church.
Yeah.
You have to be at least, I'm not going to say it. But I gave him 4 options. I said, I know exactly which one you're going to pick. God is not trying to make you comfortable is the title of this episode. James, why is that the one that you picked?
Well, because it is a very, very hot topic, I think, in the 21st century church. Because in Western culture, especially, when I've been to other countries, this is not the case. But in Western culture, we really have framed and offered Christianity as a very comfortable way to live. And we've put a lot of emphasis on abundance and prosperity. Not that that's not a part of Christianity, but we have leaned into that. And I just think that probably keeps us from being all we're called to be as the church.
Yeah. And like I said in the opening, it's really not what Jesus offers. So let's kind of walk us through what Jesus actually promised his followers, which, just to name a few: betrayal by family, persecution, and the cross. So, and these weren't really like these weren't edge cases. Like, it's not like, oh, some of you will get this. No, it was like, that was kind of the expectation. So kind of walk us through, where does that come from with Jesus? What does he mean by it?
Well, in the last 10 to 15 years, unity has become a huge topic in the church. We have to be unified. We need to be unified, which is true. We do need to be unified. My question is always, well, what is it that unifies us, though? If we can't disagree, that's not true unity. That's manufactured harmony, which I think kills the church in many ways. I've seen it kill churches, unfortunately. But Jesus was pretty clear about the fact that he is a giver of love, a giver of hope, a giver of mercy. But he said very clearly and I think the reason he said it to the disciples is because they really thought that they were going to come into this great power. The Messiah was going to put them at the front of the line when the Jews take over the world. And he was very clear that was not God's plan ever. That was never God's plan. And he began to talk about sacrifice and division and death, all those things that were not a part of what Jews really wanted to hear about what was going to happen, because they'd had enough of that from the Romans and everybody else that came after them. Jesus said that this is a path of sacrifice. It's a path of sacrifice. And I can tell you, I have, over the course of my ministry, lived in homes with 2 or 3 bathrooms. I've always had 2 or 3 cars. I could go down the list of all the ways that I have not really lived sacrificially when it comes to material things. And sacrificial is also a spiritual piece of who we are as Christians. And I think, though, the church has really bought into the abundant life, prosperity gospel at times. And we love to make fun of these TV preachers about the prosperity gospel.
Right.
But I'm telling you, we do the same thing. We may not talk about it. Mainline preachers may not preach it from the pulpits, but we live like we believe in the prosperity gospel. And I think that I would never say that God doesn't want to take care of us, that God doesn't want us to have what we need, but he also doesn't want us to fool ourselves that we're sacrificing a whole lot as his people in the 21st century, because I just don't think we are.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly where we're kind of going with this, is this prosperity adjacent version of faith that's seeped into mostly like the middle class church.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily a prosperity gospel, but it's a comfort gospel.
Comfort. That's
Like
a good way to describe it. Yeah.
people, and there's a friction there. And people are assuming that that's the aim of the Christian life, is to
Yes.
make them comfortable. And what theologians call this is moralistic therapeutic deism, which, to break that down, moralistic, it's a moral gospel that tells us what to do and what not to do. Therapeutic, it brings us comfort. It's a type of therapy.
Yes.
Deism, from a God who's not involved in our everyday.
Right.
So that's broken down what that means, and that's really what the church is offering right now. And so when you put that up against what you just named, there's a little bit of friction. So how do we, as people who would like to see that change, bring that change about? What are your thoughts?
Well, I don't think we serve a God who desires that we walk around in sackcloth and ashes,
Mm-hmm.
and that we live these minimalist lives where we give up everything like the monks in a monastery, which that's their calling. And I think it's wonderful that they do that. I do not think that's everyone's call. And I think if we study the life of Jesus, he also had people around him who were wealthy.
Yeah.
Matthew would have been very wealthy. He may not have gotten it in a good way as a tax collector, but he was wealthy. Judas would have been wealthy. Judas would have also been a minimalist in some ways, but he would have been very comfortable because he also probably obtained wealth in not so great ways.
Mm.
And then we have the rich young ruler that Jesus wanted him in the circle. He invited him into the circle. That surely would have been great for them in some ways. Even though he said, sell everything you have, follow me, he would have brought some of those proceeds with him, I'm sure, if he had been one of the disciples.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Pharisees. They were prosperous. They were not poor people. So wealth is not the issue. Wealth is not the issue. Sacrifice is the issue. And sacrifice for some people looks different than sacrifice for other people. I've been a part of 2 capital campaigns now in my ministry where you have to raise a lot of money. And I'm probably about to be a part of another one here at Grace Resurrection. And one of the things that I will say, because I truly believe it, is it's not equal giving, it's equal sacrifice. And I do believe that that is what Jesus taught us. He taught us to sacrifice, to give up things for him. But I don't think we have to give up everything. We don't have to be these close to poverty level folks to truly follow Jesus. However, I do think to whom much is given, much is required.
Mm.
And there has to be that sacrificial piece as the people of God. That's not just money, it's time, it's giving of ourselves to other people, spending time with the downtrodden, the poor in spirit, not just the poor in wealth. So it's a hard one though, Taylor, because we in this country, we are so taken care of. I mean, we're just really taken care of. And even the poor have so much more in this country than other places. And if you travel, you see that. I'm always amazed at people who like go to the Bahamas and they go to these, tropical islands and these resorts, and everything is so wonderful while you're there. What I tell people though, while you're there, take some back roads because it's a pretty sad place when you get away from the tourist areas. So many people live at that level, and many of them are dedicated Christian people, and they know what it means to live in sacrifice. I'm not sure I do fully.
Mm.
I talk about a lot of stuff from my childhood, but even when I look back at that those were difficult times, but I don't remember ever not having what I needed long term. Maybe in a short term, but I eventually got it. And I'm well aware that there are Christians all over the world who will never get what they need, and yet they will follow Jesus until they die. And I think they're truly following the way of Christ as he taught us. So
Yeah,
that's just
absolutely.
it's a big topic for me because I struggle, and not because I'm in my ivory tower, Taylor. It's because I feel very hypocritical sometimes when I preach that because I have a really good life.
Mm. And I think someone listening to this, especially the people that we minister to, would say, okay, wait, so if that means that I need to suffer for Jesus, or if I'm following Jesus, it means that I won't necessarily prosper, but I might suffer, then taken out of context, I could turn someone's life the wrong way. And so let's
Sure.
reframe the suffering. I think Paul, I've got it here in Philippians 3, calls it sharing in the fellowship of his sufferings. So
Mm-hmm.
the fact that it's not a punishment. It's not that when you follow Jesus, you have to suffer, but it's just
Yeah.
a participation.
That's it.
And so
That's it.
so I hope that kind of reframes it. It's like you're participating in the suffering, but it's all for God's glory. And I think the connotation of suffering is a bit different because it's suggesting here that really what we said in the beginning, your life is not going, just because you follow Jesus doesn't mean it's going to be amazing,
Yeah.
but at least you have a group of people that can participate in your suffering with you. You're still going to suffer.
Absolutely.
And we've kind of been preaching that a lot, so I don't think we need to dig too far into it, but here's kind of the challenge. Are you making decisions based on what God is calling you to do or what causes the least disruption to your life? I
Oh,
think
that's
that's
a
an
good one.
important challenge. It's something important to think about and be really specific with that through your career, your neighborhood, your relationships, your money. Are you making decisions based on what God is calling you to? Or are you making decisions based on what causes the least disruption to your life? Because I think when we frame it that way, that frames the suffering better than not. So, do you
Yes.
have any thoughts to add to that or an
Well,
additional challenge?
I love it that you've explained it that way because we're not called to suffer. Are some people called to suffer? Sure. I think there are people who are called to suffer. We're not all called to suffer necessarily. We are called to that sacrificial piece, though. One of the things that I've been really impressed with you and Tiffany, when I hired you the first time in Kentucky, I remember I found out that you guys just have one car.
Mm.
And I thought, gosh, that would have driven me crazy. Natalie and I, I don't know that we would have stayed married with just one car. But I was real impressed with that. And you didn't do it because you couldn't afford it. You did it because you felt like that was what you needed to do in order to be all you could be in ministry. And I think those are the small things that we can do. Now, everybody doesn't need to give up their car.
Sure.
But if that's something you can do and that helps you to stay in alignment with your call, I think it's a beautiful thing. And it's a great way to model the faith. And I know both people who are kind of poor and I know people who are really wealthy. And I could tell you ways that they sacrifice and that they believe their calling is in part sacrificial in some area of life. That's a beautiful thing. And that's how we grow. So I love your question and your challenge there because if I look at my life as a whole and say, okay, I bet there are 5 things that I could stop that I don't need to do.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily things that cost anything, but just ways that I indulge that I could use that to volunteer at a mission or spend more time with people that are unbelievers
Mm-hmm.
or get to know my community better. One of the huge things for me in East Cobb is we're in a very affluent area, yet I pass people constantly on these corners who are asking for money. Some of them are scammers, but some of them are in real need. And one of the things that I've tried to do, and my wife taught me this because she does a really good job with it, is when I encounter those people, not just give them my change in my car or a few bucks, but actually pull over sometimes and just talk to them and get to know them. And I think just that, if I don't give them anything, if I just had a conversation with them and just say, listen, I just want you to know that I may not be able to help you and give you what you need right now, but I am going to be praying for you, and God sees you and He loves you. I'm not saying the quick I'll pray for you kind of thing. I'm talking about really looking someone in the eye and saying, I'm going to pray for you and I'm going to remember your name. Or maybe you and I, a few weeks ago, we were at Ministries and just giving some time to that ministry because they do such great work, and it's the work of Christ is what they do in this community. Or the Zone, the Zone, which has a great ministry to people with addictions here in Marietta, really Metro Atlanta. So I just hope that as people listen to this today, because this is not the funnest topic, that you and I could do, but it is truly a topic that could transform our communities, transform our hearts, transform our churches. If we looked at our lives as a whole and said, all right, I'm going to give up these things so that I can do this for God, it would make a huge dent in some of the issues that we have in the church. I think our churches would begin to grow and people would see transformed hearts. And that's not always easy to do, but it's a great, great thing to be aware of because Jesus was the ultimate when it comes to sacrifice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to stop. I think you nailed it. So we hope this conversation's been meaningful to you, and we hope that you'll share it with others so that it can be meaningful to them. And as always, you can find us on YouTube, Apple Music, Spotify, and on our website, graceresurrection.org. And we'd love if you'd continue to join us each week for our next episodes of the Grace and Truth podcast. But until next time, may the good Lord bless and keep you.
Until we meet again.